Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Exit polls claim Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, led by Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, is set to regain a majority in the country's lower house. Thailand votes in a national election featuring a three-way contest among major political blocs, with coalition talks likely to follow. Iran describes Oman-mediated indirect talks with the United States as a positive step towards nuclear negotiations, while emphasizing that it's a non-negotiable that talks will remain not on its missile program. According to Chinese state media, 8 people were killed in a blast at a biotechnology factory in central China early Saturday. Officials said rescue operations have now ended. The company's legal representatives has been taken into custody and authorities are now investigating the cause of the incident. India and Malaysia have pledged to deepen their semiconductor partnership as the Indian Ocean neighbors ramp up trade and security links during a visit from Prime Minister Modi in Malaysia. Trump signs an order warning of new U.S. tariffs on countries that continue to trade with Iran, citing a possible 25% rate. The move comes as U.S.-Iran talks continue in Oman, with Trump restating opposition to Iran's nuclear weapons. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the U.S. wants the war with Russia to end by June, adding both sides had been invited to the U.S. for talks next week in Miami. Ukraine have confirmed their attendance, but Russia is yet to agree. A white supremacist who killed 51 Muslim worshippers in the 2019 Christchurch mosque attacks in New Zealand, Brenton Tarrant, will begin an appeal hearing today. Tarrant, an Australian national convicted of 51 murders, 40 attempted murders and terrorism charge after live streaming the attacks, carried out New Zealand's worst massacre in recent history. Now for this hour, we start with Japan. According to Japan's exit polls, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, also known as the LDP, led by Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, is set to regain a majority in the country's lower house. Japan's national broadcaster NHK projects the LDP and its coalition partner Ishin will win between 302 and 366 seats out of the 465 available. This marks a significant victory for Takaichi's right-wing party, with projections showing a major boost from their current 198 seats. If the LDP secures 310 or more seats, it will achieve a two-thirds supermajority, giving the party the power to amend Japan's constitution. Prime Minister Takaichi, who has gained popularity among younger voters, led the LDP in a campaign marked by a strong ultra-conservative message. Let's listen in to some voters.
なんか高市さんが今まで見てきた政治とはちょっと違う雰囲気を出してくれているので、そこにちょっと期待して入れました。
女性だからというのもあれですけど、やっぱ高市さんに頑張っていただきたいっていうのが大きいですかね。
ガソリンは安くなったからいいんですけどね。ただやっぱり物価とか高いのと、それから給料が安いのが今すごく問題じゃないですかね。
山積しすぎてて一つ選ぶわけにいかないですね。国防、食料政策、それから社会福祉、人口問題、環境もありますし、もう大変ですね。
工場が閉まってるとか、なんか少し時間が短くなるとかいろいろあるって聞いてるので、そのあたりなんでしょうね、もうちょっと平等に投票できるような状況を設定できるような形になるといいかな。
Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's a journalist of the Korea Herald, joins us live from Seoul. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how does Prime Minister Takaichi's stance on, defense spending, military readiness affect Japan's strategic position in Asia Pacific, especially in relation to China's growing influence? How do you think all of this including China-Japan relations, which are also not at the best, will be affecting the upcoming election results?
Tuma, power opens the door, but law decides how far you can walk. In this case, this seems to be working, but we have to understand this exit poll results of NHK and also some newspapers in Japan. They have reported in alignment with this. I mean, the entire media is thinking that she is going to be leading the majority. But there are three aspects that we need to understand. I would term it from the perspective of constitutional execution, because although you get majority in the lower house, but for certain things you need the constitutional support and upper house approval, and this will require also some referendums in future when it comes to some security decisions. So this is number one. And number two is the political alignment. If we see that, then of course she is going to regain the support inside the party and inside the LDP, and she is going to gain some more support, and which would be minimizing the internal rift within the party. So that fragmentation would be stopped if she comes into majority, which is very likely. And coming to your this very important and very critical aspect of this security issue, which is likely to be caused due to her comments that she made a few days back, and also this issue is going to be raised in coming weeks and months to come. But there is an aspect of United States, and I'm sure that United States has somehow instructed Japan after their meeting just recently when the envoy came from the US. So I'm pretty sure that there might be having some instructions, and US, Japan, and also in cooperation with Korea, they might be having some sort of plan for China, and there would be some sort of a consolidation on that. So under the new government, I mean with new majority, definitely Japan is going to consolidate on that. So in a way, it is going to be regionally stable because this trilateral cooperation would be working. But at the same time, it would be fragile also when you compare just from bilateral perspectives with China. I mean China-Japan perspective. That looks still fragile because China has not announced anything, or they have not said anything in recent days against Japan. The relationship was not in good shape, but Japan and China has not cemented the ties completely also, and this remains a bone of contention, and Taiwan makes this bone of contention more stronger.
Right, and how do you think, the fact that President Trump endorsed her openly or publicly, do you think that had anything to do with her popularity among young voters?
I'm sure Trump would be very happy to know if she, by seeing this thumping majority, and he would be happy because Trump's short-term and long-term both goals lie in containing China somehow. And if you see his comments and also the policy of U.S. in recent times, it highlights to engage China for dialogue, for fruitful cooperation. But if you see the policy level dialogues and the meetings of meetings of Trump with different states and especially allies, including NATO and other forces, it is always directed towards China. So if you see the meetings even with European leaders, you would always find that there is a China element from Trump's side, and it is not friendly but hostile. If you just recall last week's comment of President Trump on Canada, that it is dangerous. I mean, engagement of China and Canada is dangerous. Any observer can easily see what is there in Trump's mind and also the United States foreign policy on China. So on that front, Japan becomes a natural ally. I would not like to mention South Korea here because it is a different case. But if I see Japan here, it fits completely well into U.S. short-term and long-term goals to contain China, and it would be killing two birds with one stone. I mean, it would not just be containing China, but also reasserting help on Taiwan through Japan. So there is this angle as well. So I see that US-Japan relationship here would be very critical, and that is why Trump and his advisors, his strategic, his strategists might be having this in mind very well, and they understand it, that why Japan is important. And from this viewpoint, definitely Trump and Taikachi's friendship would be very fruitful, I think, from this particular perspective also, especially. I'm not mentioning here the tariff things and all, but if you see purely from security perspective, this combo is going to be very strategic and very fruitful in Japan's as well as US national interest.
Thank you for highlighting that, Dr. Sanjay. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, looking at India and Malaysia, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has concluded a 2-day official visit to Malaysia, reinforcing the India-Malaysia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership and announcing 16 concrete outcomes spanning defense, security, trade, technology, culture, and people-to-people ties. Leaders held extensive talks in Kuala Lumpur, reaffirming long-standing historical and cultural links and agreeing to deepen cooperation across multiple sectors. Key announcements include the rollout of UPI for cross-border payments, establishment of an Indian consulate, strengthened collaboration on semiconductors, disaster management, anti-corruption, peacekeeping, and enhanced educational and social security initiatives. Both sides also focused on improving digital health, vocational, and environmental cooperation to bolster economic opportunity and strategic engagement. Now we welcome back Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's joining us live from Seoul. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for staying with us. Now, looking at Malaysia and India, can you share a little bit of history behind their friendship?
The Malaysia-India relationships had been very long, and we have historical links, especially if you see the diaspora link. There are like second generation, third generation Indians and like Malays living there, and there is a very natural and very old age friendship and old age ties, and especially civilizational links. Culturally also there are different things. Very many similar things. But what is very important is that in diplomacy, words open the door, but it is action which makes milestones. If you see Prime Minister Modi's this move, he had been little silent on many issues of diplomacy in recent weeks, but what he has been delivering has been very, very noteworthy. This is also a milestone in that direction, because in one way he is trying to activate by the friendly ties with Malaysia, calling Prime Minister Ibrahim as his friend. This is very personal friendly ties, but also while coming up with semiconductor and digital ecosystem cooperation, it says a lot. It says India's larger vision of engaging global South and especially ASEAN, and India's Act East policy, and Malaysia had been an old age friend when it comes to diplomatic friendship as well. So this is going to be very critical, I think, especially when it comes to engaging the cooperation, engaging Malaysia and deepening the cooperation with ASEAN. And Malaysia, they have this ASEAN chairmanship, and they had been playing really important role. Recently, you see, like during Thai-Cambodia border dispute also, they played a key role. So, having a meeting of two leaders like of a stature like Modi and Ibrahim, it signifies a lot when it comes to ASEAN. And if you see the Indian market of 1.5 billion, like it is like a big sheep moving towards ASEAN and especially Malaysia. And this kind of strategic messaging in times of uncertainty, it looks like it is making ASEAN, India, and entire Asia region a more certain region. So certainty is very needed in terms of these middle economies like Malaysia, and that is why it is very important. I am sure that other countries are also going to take lesson of this to bilateral dialogue, and many milestones are going to be achieved. And Asuma, on a final note, I would also like to say that Malaysia has a very good ecosystem of digital and semiconductor. Their talent is well known, and they also had been very considered very important country in among ASEAN countries, especially after Singapore. They had been seen in India by many tech experts and IT experts as a second Singapore within ASEAN. So that kind of perception has been already there in India, and many IT companies in India are looking to diversify their network also, and Malaysia can be a very good friend in long run.
Thank you for highlighting that and sharing that insight with us, Dr. Kumar. Thank you very much. Now we have a breaking news. A magnitude 5.5 earthquake has struck Cuba, according to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center. The quake, initially reported as 5.9, was later downgraded to 5.5. It occurred at a depth of 15 kilometers, and while it shook parts of the island, there has been no immediate reports of significant damage or casualties. The earthquake follows a recent trend of seismic activity in the region, but further details on its impact are still awaited. Now we move on to Africa. In northern Nigeria's Kaduna state, gunmen has reportedly killed 3 people and abducted a Catholic priest and several others in a pre-dawn attack on a church residence. The kidnapped clergyman has been identified as Nathaniel Asuwaye, who acted as the parish priest of Holy Trinity Catholic Church in the Karku district. This assault points out the persistent insecurity in the region, which comes just days after the rescue of 166 worshippers who were taken in separate church attacks elsewhere in Kaduna. There has been a continuing wave of kidnappings in Nigeria, including the release of 89 Christians who were held captive after a January attack on 3 other churches. These attacks have drawn international scrutiny, including from U.S. President Donald Trump, who condemned the violence against Christians. Despite diplomatic efforts and military strikes by the United States, the violence continues, with gunmen carrying out deadly attacks and mass kidnappings across the country. Meanwhile, Nigerian authorities say that they face challenges in combating armed gangs, inter-communal conflicts, and jihadist groups that have plagued the region. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He's a former High Commissioner to Nigeria, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Now, as we saw similar kind of thing carried out earlier, and now this again, why is Nigerian government lacking, or is Nigerian government lacking in action to, protect minorities or protect people from kidnappers?
A good question. I think a number of factors impinge upon Nigeria's security situation. First of all, there is a huge diversity of population. The country is largest in Africa by population, having more than 200 million people, almost equally divided between Christians and Muslims. In the central part of the country, which includes Kaduna, north of Abuja, the capital, the Christians and Muslims have been living cheek by jowl, and that often leads to frictions among them. Part of the friction, second issue would be, is because of Fulani herdsmen and Christian settlers or farmers coming to blows with each other during the dry season, which is now. Uh, Herders come down to central part of Nigeria to look for greener pastures in the rivers and better irrigated area as the north becomes drier. And therefore, the farmers find them eroding upon their territory, and their fields are herded through. The third issue would be malgovernance. Nigeria has structural flaws in terms of there being a federal police and federal security, and the state governors are fairly autonomous, but they do not control the police. So orders have to come all the way from the federal capital of Abuja for this kind of action to be taken against security threats. In this particular case, nobody has claimed the responsibility for kidnapping of the priest and 10 other persons, although the accounts differ from the security services side, who claim that only 3 people died. All of them were security personnel, and only 5, apart from the priest, were kidnapped. The motives could be the religious ones, terrorizing Christians from coming further north, or organizing themselves better, while other motive, which is plain banditry and ransom seeking, could also be fairly commonly attributed to such cases. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sachdev, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us. Now we move to Ethiopia. Ethiopia has ordered Eritrea to immediately withdraw its troops from Ethiopian territory, accusing Asmara's forces of an incursion and collaborating with rebel groups along the northwestern border. Ethiopian Foreign Minister Gideon Timotheos has accused Eritrea of escalating tensions, calling the actions acts of outright aggression. Relations between the two countries have been strained for years, especially following their border war from 1998 to 2000. Recently, Addis Ababa has accused Eritrea of supporting insurgents, a claim Eritrea denies. Despite these tensions, Timotheos has expressed hope that diplomacy could still break the cycle of violence. Eritrea has yet to comment on the allegations. Now we welcome back former Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He's joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, can you tell us what more can you tell us about this Ethiopia and Eritrea's heightened tensions between them?
There are ethnic as well as geopolitical issues involved in heightened tensions this time. The ties between Ethiopia and Eritrea have been tense for quite many decades, ever since Eritrea managed to secede from Ethiopia. But the two countries had a brief conflict, as you mentioned. Eritrea is much smaller than Ethiopia, but has been governed by Afrikawi, the Afwerki, president for life ever since its independence in 1990s. Now, the two countries had a modicum of peace in 2019, leading to Abiy Ahmed, the Ethiopian Prime Minister, being accorded Nobel Peace Prize that year. But soon thereafter, a war in the northern province of Tigray started, with the homegrown Tigray People's Liberation Front fighting against Addis Ababa's forces. the federal forces of Ethiopia. In this particular war, Eritrea supported Ethiopian forces, and the Tigray rebels were defeated, but not totally. And a ceasefire agreement was signed in South Africa in 2020, which has ensured peace in Tigray for quite some time amidst tensions between Addis Ababa and Tigray People's Liberation Front. Now, in the meanwhile, apparently Eritrea has changed sides, and instead of supporting Addis Ababa, it is now supporting TPLF. And that is what has led to simmering distrust between Ethiopia and Eritrea to resurface. The second point in this tension is external. Egypt has its own grouse against Ethiopia for Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on Blue Nile River, which Egypt is a lower riparian country but heavily dependent on Nile waters.
Yes.
It has now joined Saudi Arabia in supporting Eritrea against Ethiopia. So emboldened Ethiopia is now flexing its muscles, while Ethiopia is being supported by apparently the United Arab Emirates, which has its own grouse against Saudi Arabia and to some extent Egypt. So the external forces are also abetting the tensions between Eritrea and Ethiopia.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sachdev, for sharing that insight and history with us on NewsX World. We have a breaking news. Breezy Johnson secured the gold medal in the alpine skiing downhill at the Winter Olympics today, clocking 1 minute 36.10 seconds in her run. The victory marked her first Olympic medal, but the win was bittersweet for the U.S. team as Lindsey Vonn's comeback attempt ended in a horror crash, overshadowing the triumph. Johnson, the reigning downhill world champion, seized the moment in an early run, making history on an emotional day for the American team. Now we move on to Milan. Clashes erupted in Milan on Saturday as protests over the 2026 Winter Olympics turned violent. While an earlier peaceful demonstration saw 10,000 people march against the environmental impact of the Games, a smaller group later clashed with police near the Olympic Village. Protesters threw smoke bombs, firecrackers and stones, prompting authorities to use water cannons and tear gas to restore order. The protests were also fueled by opposition to the presence of U.S. ICE officers at the event. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni condemned the violence, calling the protesters enemies of Italy after attacks on rail infrastructure and police. The International Olympic Committee, however, insists the Games will spread a message of peace despite the unrest. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.